Is this the best e-bike in 2025?
This is the Movcan V30 Max off-road electric motorcycle e-bike with hydraulic brakes and 2 batteries for extended range. Today we're going to unbox and assemble this e-bike.
And we're going to show you the step-by-step of how to put this bike together and show you how easy it is.
How fast is this e-bike and what's the top speed?
How good are the brakes?
What about battery life?
How good is the suspension?
Who's this e-bike even for?
We're going to answer all those questions plus a few more after we show you the assembly video for this bike.
Movcan did send us this e-bike to assemble and review for you guys today.
Although we have purchased Movcan bikes in the past, we're going to give you our honest opinions on this one and any positives and negatives that we run into along the way. We have our V30 Max. Let's get it out of the box and do a quick inventory of all of our parts. It's a bike in a box.
It's a bike in a box.
Let's get everything laid out here and do a quick inventory of all of our parts. These bikes come 85% put together. I can't imagine anything being much easier to put together as far as the bike goes because it looks pretty straightforward and almost all the frame and everything's already been assembled for you. We've got all of our parts laid out here and it looks like everything's in order. Everything was in good condition when it shipped. I am kind of excited to see 2 different chargers for the batteries because this one has 2 different batteries, being the V30 Max. That kind of answered a question that I had personally was, do you have to charge one battery or the other, or do they both charge simultaneously? But it looks like you can charge both batteries at the same time. You just use 2 different power sources. Our front hub has the brake rotor already attached to it. We've got it comes with a phone holder, it's got a bike lock, has the tool kit, it's got pegs, comes with a spare tire, 2 battery chargers, which is cool. It has a kickstand, has our fender, our air pump. We've got our booklet, the instructions, and we even have a bike rack to get our handlebars put on. The stem is shipped upside down, so we're going to take that off and flip it. But before we get that far, we also have to take this top head plate off so we can route our wires through it.
Oh, there's a spacer.
So now that we've got our stem off, this thing just comes right out and we're going to route our wires right through the front forks. Don't forget our spacer and our front stem. And we're just going to snug this all up and we're going to torque it down after we get the handlebars and everything assembled. Our next step, we're going to make sure that we plug in our color-coded connectors here, and they are keyed. So we've got our stem flipped, our handlebars are mounted, all of our wiring's connected. Next, we're going to swing our headlight out of the way so we can get the front rack put on. Don't forget, after we get all of our components installed, we're going to do the performance testing. For shipping purposes, this bracket's on there upside down, so let's go ahead and take the nuts out of this and we'll put it on. So here's the correct orientation of our L bracket. We're going to leave the 2 bolts loose for the bracket until we get the rack put on the bike. Our 2 long bolts go in the top and our short bolt goes into the bottom of the head frame. So let's go ahead and get our 2 top bolts tightened down. So when we first got this thing mounted up here, it looked like we were going to have a pretty big fight on our hands just due to some of the gaps. But if you start your bottom bracket bolt and run the 2 top ones down, it just sucks it all together nicely. Our front support bolt's in the way, it just sticks through too far to get our headlight mounted. So let's take this bolt out and see if it'll clear. You could cut the bolt down and then be able to still use this and have enough room in there. But for what we're going to use this for, this rack's never going to carry enough weight to make that second bolt necessary. We're going to reuse a little bit of the packing material on these 2 foam blocks, and we're going to flip the bike upside down to put the wheel on. So we're going to put these on the ground and just set the 2 handlebars on it. Next, we're going to inflate the tires. Let's go ahead and make sure that the tire tube isn't pinched and that the rim is sitting on the bead of the tire. We're going to try out the pump that came with the bike and see how it holds up. It doesn't look like much, but we may be wrong.
It's pretty good.
All right, our bead looks pretty good on there. Make sure that you pull your spacer out of the brake caliper. Take the nut and the retaining washers off of your axle stud and drop it in.
Be aware of the disc. Try not to touch it with your fingers. You're gonna get oil on it. We're gonna clean this with alcohol before we bed in the brakes, but just be aware.
Make sure you get your retaining washers on there. They are keyed, so if they loosen, your wheel doesn't come off. We're gonna do the same thing on the back. That ain't going nowhere. All right, next we're gonna go ahead and install pedals, and they are labeled left and right, and so are the. Next, we're gonna go ahead and get our kickstand bolted on, and then we can flip the bike back over on its wheels. Next, we're gonna put on the foot pegs. And now let's get our front fender put on. We've got our bike lock bracket mounted, and this was pretty much the only location where we had a semi-round tube, so that's where this ended up going. Next, we're gonna torque down the bolts on our headset, and we're gonna start by loosening the 2 clamp bolts on our stem and making sure that this is good and tight. And then we'll tighten down the clamp bolts, just kind of working them from both sides to make sure you get an equal torque on them. We don't have a torque wrench to do these bolts on the headset, but 6 Newton meters is the torque spec, so if you do have one, you can use it. Good hand-tight bolts are pretty much 6 Newton meters. Now that we have the bike assembled, we're going to go ahead and charge up the batteries. They come with 2 separate chargers, so you can charge both batteries at the same time, instead of waiting for one to finish and then moving on to the second. After we get them charged up, we're going to do my favorite part, the performance testing.
We'll make sure we put affiliate links for this e-bike down in the video description. Now, buying from the Movcan website is almost always going to be your best bet, but I'll put a link to Amazon so you can get your best deal.
Let's talk about the suspension. The rear has an adjustable coil shock in there, and the front has non-adjustable spring shocks. Let's go find a trail and see how this thing handles. I'm super excited to get to ride this V30 Max. It's pretty rewarding to be able to unbox a bike, put it together, and then take it out for a ride. Our riding spot today is the Franaghet National Wildlife Refuge, located about an hour and a half north of Las Vegas. The visitor center here is amazing. There's some amazing walking trails and lots of cool views. This place has several trails that are e-bike friendly, and they are beautiful. It's literally an oasis in the desert. It's hard to make out on camera, but the LCD display on this bike is much brighter than it looks on the video. Below, it has a USB port that's actually a USB-C. Coming off this concrete drop onto the gravel was about a 6-inch drop, which the bike handled pretty good. Now, I'm not saying this bike could ever handle a bunch of ruts or roots on a mountain bike trail, but so far, this thing has a very comfortable ride. All right, so it looks like the next part of this trail, we're gonna get some bumpy road, some dirt, some sand, so we're really gonna get to test out the suspension here. I was not trying to take it easy on this trail. I was trying to hit every bump that I could find, and you can see the camera mount kept bending from all of the abuse. The front fork suspension did great. I was expecting the forks to bottom out over some of these bumps, but they never did. And neither did the rear suspension. I have to say I was pretty surprised. This trail had a little bit of everything going on. Hard packed, sand, even gravel. And the V30 Max took pretty much everything we could throw at it, even the washboard testing. And now for the washboard test. I think this bike will take much more washboard road than I will. We're gonna do some brake testing to see how well this bike stops. We're gonna go down, get up to 20 miles an hour, and then when we come back, as soon as we hit our Mr. Fred's hat, we're gonna hit the brakes and see how long it takes to stop. I think 16 feet is it. So on loose gravel from 24 miles an hour, it took 16 feet to stop this bike. I would imagine on pavement, it would be less. We didn't have a good place on pavement at the lake to do a speed and brake test, so we're here on this bike path to do both. And make sure you like and subscribe, because at the end of this year, we're gonna do a 1-year review of this e-bike. We forgot a tape measure for this test, so we're gonna use the app on our iPhone and see what our stopping distance was. 19 feet, 6 inches. I don't think the dirt test was all that accurate, and I think we braked a little early on that, but this is pretty hard to dispute that that's 19.5 feet on pavement. This bike has hydraulic brakes, and considering this bike weighs over 100 pounds, I'd say they stop pretty good. We're gonna make 2 passes for the speed test, once with just the throttle, and another pass with the pedal assist. 18. 24. 28.
Well,
28. Maxed it. Top speed with just the throttle was 28 miles an hour. Let's see if we can go any faster with the pedal assist.
what are your thoughts?
I'm out of shape. 29.5.
29.5.
This is where it would really benefit from having a 10-speed. You just run out of pedal assist gears. Thumbing through the 5 computer levels is easy. It feels similar to paddle shifting a car maybe. And using the lower levels is a good way to limit how fast the bike can go. The Shimano 7-speed shifter makes it easy to shift the bicycle, gearing up and down to match the 5 levels of motor assist. Acceleration with the twist throttle alone is pretty good, and using the pedal assist makes it even better. I think not making this bike a 10-speed might be a missed opportunity. I'm finding at the higher speeds, it's hard to keep up pedaling with the motor. Alright, so let's talk about battery life. So we've put just over 26 miles on this bike today, and we're down to 68% battery life. So full disclosure, we've been ripping on this thing all day, and I really haven't been using the pedal assist at all. So I would think 50 miles without pedal assist is very reasonable. So the 70 miles with the pedal assist, I think the ratings are right on the money, and you might even get a little more. As far as the suspension goes on this bike, I think it holds up pretty good. It took the washboard road very well, much longer than I'll take it. It does well with the hills. Anything that you can put this bike on terrain-wise, it seems to eat it up. Who is this bike for? Honestly, I feel like it's for everybody. It's very beginner friendly. It takes a lot of abuse and is not hard on the rider. It's gonna be great for commuters just because of the distance. Obviously that 70 miles is very achievable. And if you're somebody that's looking for a trail bike, I think this is a great option as well.
Let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons.
Con number 1, the bike lock. While I think it's great that they include the bike lock, the bracket that comes with it is supposed to be mounted on a tubular part of the frame, and this bike really doesn't have it, so mounting is a difficult challenge. Con number 2 were the foot pegs. They're just too close to the pedals to be functional, and your feet constantly hit them when you're pedaling the bike, so we had to take them off. Con number 3 for this bike isn't necessarily about the bike itself, but the lack of accessories that come from Movcan. While Movcan has almost all of the parts on their website for this bike, which I think is a great positive, accessories like saddlebags are nowhere to be found. We actually found a great little saddlebag on Amazon, and we'll put the link in the description below in case you want to check it out.
For the pros for this e-bike, there's a lot to like about this e-bike. It has great range and the suspension is pretty good. We're both pretty big guys, well over 200 pounds, and this thing rides pretty good.
The biggest pro to this bike though is the build quality. All the wiring connections in it were either weather pack connectors or they're heat shrink together, and I thought that was pretty impressive. The second big thing that stands out with it is the price. It's a great value for your money, and with the $50 off that we've arranged for you, your money will go a little further.
Movcan not only offers the V30 Max, it offers all kinds of e-bikes. Check out our review of the Movcan V60 Pro. Thanks for watching.